What if I told you that right now, as you're reading this, an object from beyond our solar system is still burning fuel in the freezing expanse of space 420 million kilometers from the sun, where temperatures plummet to negative 150 degrees Celsius? In this frigid darkness, where water ice becomes harder than granite, and where no natural comet should show any signs of life, something remarkable is happening. Three jets are firing in perfect unison, spaced precisely 120 degrees apart, and they are defying every rule of physics we thought we knew. Stay with me. What I'm about to reveal will completely change your understanding of what's out there in the cosmos. Over the past few months, we've been tracking one of the most extraordinary objects ever to enter our solar system, 3I Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar visitor. As it arrived in our cosmic neighborhood, it immediately began breaking the laws of astronomy. But here's the kicker. What happened in the last 72 hours completely shattered everything we thought we knew. The mainstream media claimed the show was over. They said the jets would freeze, the object would go dark, and we'd lose sight of it for months as it drifted into the outer solar system. Case closed, they said. Nothing more to see. But then, on March 3rd, something happened that completely changed the game. The European Space Agency's JUICE spacecraft, designed to study Jupiter and its moons, turned its cameras toward 3I Atlas. What it captured left scientists stunned. The jets were still there, still firing, still spaced perfectly, and the eerie blue glow surrounding the object hadn't faded, it had intensified. Now, think about what that means. 3I Atlas is nearly 3 astronomical units away from the sun, meaning solar energy has dropped by a staggering 80%. Its surface temperature has plunged to negative 150 degrees Celsius, a temperature where water ice becomes as hard as concrete, and methane ice turns rock solid. At these levels, there's no known volatile material that should be able to sublimate, let alone produce the kind of jets we're seeing. Natural comets simply don't do this. So what's happening here? Well, it's burning. And that fact alone eliminates every natural explanation on the table. Let me take you back to January, when the Hubble Space Telescope first captured those extraordinary images showing 3 perfectly spaced jets erupting from the surface of 3I Atlas. I remember analyzing the data and thinking, this cannot be random. The jets were positioned at exactly 120 degrees intervals around the object's equator, a pattern that doesn't happen in nature. Here's the thing. Engineers designing spacecraft systems use that exact configuration, 3 thrusters spaced at 120 degrees, to stabilize the spacecraft and cancel out any rotational wobble. It's the optimal arrangement for maintaining orientation in space. Every spacecraft, from the Apollo capsules to the International Space Station, uses some variation of this principle. And now, here's an object from interstellar space displaying the exact same geometry. Is it a coincidence? That's what the skeptics argued. They said solar heating had created weak spots in the object's crust, causing gas to escape randomly through cracks, forming jets in the process. But that explanation never quite added up, especially as the object moved further from the sun. The idea was that as 3I Atlas drifted farther into the cold, the jets would stop. After all, without the heat from the sun, the ice should refreeze, right? So we waited, we watched as the object traveled an additional 280 million kilometers away from the sun. Solar flux dropped by 80%. The surface temperature dropped to levels where no known volatile should be able to sublimate. And yet, 3I Atlas didn't go dark. It kept firing. And that's when the implications became clear. If the object is still venting gas without the help of solar energy, there can only be one explanation, an internal heat source. And if it's generating its own power, then it's not just a rock. It's something more, it's a machine. But that's where things get even more interesting. Stay with me because this is about to get even stranger. Now, I need you to really grasp what this means. This isn't just residual heat slowly dissipating from the object. If that were the case, the jets would weaken over time, gradually flickering out like the embers of a dying fire. But that's not what's happening. The jets are holding steady, consistent in their output without any sign of fading. This means that the heat source is actively working. It's generating energy right now in the cold vacuum of space, 420 million kilometers from the nearest star. Think about that for a moment. There is no known natural process that could account for this. Comets don't just generate power out of nowhere. But here's the kicker. If this object is generating power, then it's not just a random interstellar rock, it's something engineered. And that brings us to the second anomaly, something buried deep in the telemetry report from the European Space Agency's JUICE spacecraft. While everyone was caught up in the excitement of the jets, there was something else happening that nobody seemed to notice. The JUICE spacecraft carried an ultraviolet spectrometer, or UVS, designed to scan the object and map its chemical composition by analyzing how it absorbs ultraviolet light. This instrument is incredibly sensitive. It can detect even trace amounts of gas at parts per billion. When the JUICE probe pointed its UVS toward 3I Atlas and attempted to scan its surface, something strange happened. The spectrometer stopped working. The official report claimed it was a temporary interference caused by cosmic ray background radiation. They explained that a random burst of high-energy particles hit the detector at the precise moment JUICE was scanning the object, causing it to become saturated and rendering the data useless. But hold on, let's break this down. Cosmic rays are indeed real. They are high-energy protons and atomic nuclei traveling at nearly the speed of light. Yes, they can blind sensors if they hit at the wrong time. But here's the problem. The odds of a cosmic ray striking the exact sensor at the exact moment it was locked onto 3I Atlas during a scanning window that lasted less than 5 seconds are astronomically low. We're talking about 1 in billions. And when you dig into the raw data, something doesn't add up. The interference wasn't a random spike. It was a continuous flatline signal. The detector recorded maximum saturation for the entire duration of the scan. There was no fluctuation, no decay, just a wall of electromagnetic noise completely blocking the scan. And here's the part that made my blood run cold. The frequency analysis showed a narrowband emission centered at exactly 1665 megahertz. If you know anything about radio astronomy, that number should immediately grab your attention. 665 megahertz is the hydroxyl line, the frequency at which hydroxyl molecules, the O2 pair, formed when water breaks apart, naturally emit radiation. This frequency is crucial in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. In fact, SETI researchers call it the water hole because it's the perfect frequency for interstellar communications. If an alien civilization wanted to broadcast a signal that astronomers would notice, 1665 megahertz is the frequency they would choose. It's essentially the universal meeting point for civilizations hoping to make contact. But here's the twist. 3I Atlas wasn't broadcasting a signal, it was jamming the scan. When JUICE's spectrometer attempted to analyze the object's surface, something on the object responded. It generated an electromagnetic pulse at exactly 1665 megahertz, enough to completely blind the sensor. This wasn't passive reflection, it was active defense, and it was happening in real time. What does that mean? It means that the object knew it was being watched. it had some kind of mechanism in place to actively block the scan. But why? Why would something burn energy on defensive shielding in the freezing darkness of space? This wasn't a random coincidence. This was a calculated response, indicating that whatever this object is, it knows exactly what it's doing. And if it's actively blocking sensors, it's likely protecting something it doesn't want us to see. Stay with me, because we're just getting started. What happens next could make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the universe. Now, let's talk about what happens when you dig deeper into the data. Because the object's response to the JUICE spacecraft's scanning wasn't just a random blip. It was a pattern, a deliberate interference that matches an intelligence capable of sensing and responding to external stimuli. And this isn't the only anomaly we're dealing with. There's another detail hidden within the data that speaks volumes about this object's capabilities. While the ultraviolet spectrometer was being jammed, other instruments on the JUICE spacecraft weren't exactly getting clear signals either. One instrument, called the radio frequency receiver, detected something even more unsettling. As the spacecraft approached 3I Atlas, a strange signal began to emerge, an electromagnetic pulse, identical in nature to those emitted by advanced spacecraft under certain conditions. The signal was narrow, highly specific, and concentrated in a very precise frequency range. This kind of electromagnetic signature doesn't occur naturally in space. It's the kind of signal you'd expect from an active spacecraft, one that's aware of its environment and is taking active measures to communicate or shield itself from detection. And that's exactly what happened when JUICE tried to scan 3I Atlas. The object was responding to external scans, not passively, but actively, like it was protecting something or someone from prying eyes. And that's when it hit me. The object isn't just a passive traveler through space. It's a machine, a probe, with purpose, with a mission, something engineered with control over its environment. It's not just drifting through space. It's been designed to operate, to gather information, and perhaps, most disturbingly, to defend itself. This is not the behavior of a random comet or asteroid, but that's not all. There's another shocking detail that emerged in the latest data, something that solidified my suspicions. If you remember, the trajectory of 3I Atlas was being closely tracked, and the latest astrometry data, released on March 2nd, revealed something extraordinary. The object had shifted its approach. It wasn't just cruising through the solar system, it had made a precise correction to its path. Here's where it gets interesting. 3I Atlas didn't just travel along the flat plane of the solar system, like most objects in our neighborhood. It tilted its orbit by exactly 8.8 degrees off the ecliptic plane. Now, this might sound like a small adjustment, but here's the catch. 8.8 degrees is the exact tilt of Jupiter's magnetic axis relative to its equator. Let that sink in for a moment. The object didn't just wander through space. It adjusted its trajectory to align with something. Jupiter isn't just any planet, it's a massive electromagnetic engine. Its magnetic field is the strongest in the solar system, and it traps charged particles from the solar wind to create powerful radiation belts. This magnetic field is no random occurrence. It has structure, it has geometry, and it's within this field, along one of Jupiter's most powerful magnetic lines, the Io flux tube, that 3I Atlas adjusted its trajectory to align itself perfectly. The Io flux tube connects Jupiter's moon Io to the planet's upper atmosphere, creating an invisible, high-energy bridge, a power source unlike anything we've encountered. If you want to harvest energy from Jupiter without entering its atmosphere, the Io flux tube is the place to be. And that's exactly where 3I Atlas is heading. The fact that this object tilted its orbit to perfectly align with Jupiter's magnetic axis is no coincidence. It's not a random event in the cosmos. This was deliberate. The object is heading toward Jupiter's magnetosphere with purpose, and it's done so with remarkable precision. It's as if it knows exactly what it's after. But here's the real kicker. In just 11 days, on March 16th, 3I Atlas will reach its closest approach to Jupiter, and that's when things could get really interesting. At that moment, the object will be in position to tap into one of the most powerful natural energy sources in the solar system, the Io flux tube. And here's where it gets even crazier. The object's ability to harvest energy from Jupiter could change everything we know about technology and interstellar exploration. The question now is not whether the object is intelligent. There's already enough evidence to suggest that. The question is, what is it going to do with the power it collects? Now, this is where things get really intriguing. 3I Atlas is not just passing by Jupiter, it's heading straight for its magnetosphere. And this isn't just any ordinary flyby. The object is heading toward the Io flux tube, an invisible conduit of power stretching from Jupiter's moon Io to the planet's upper atmosphere. This tube carries a flow of energy stronger than anything we've ever witnessed. The current flowing through this tube is so powerful that it could easily power an entire starship in just a matter of hours. But to harness that energy, you need to approach it at exactly the right angle, precisely the angle 3I Atlas has chosen. On March 16th, 3I Atlas will be 420,000 kilometers from Jupiter's cloud tops, moving at a speed of 32 kilometers per second as it aligns itself perfectly with the Io flux tube. It will be in prime position to draw energy from the most powerful natural electrical circuit in the solar system. This is no accident. The object has done its calculations. It has adjusted its trajectory to ensure that it will be able to tap into Jupiter's immense energy reservoir. And once it's in place, it could collect vast amounts of power, enough to sustain whatever mission it has in mind. But here's where things get even more fascinating. What if the object is not just collecting energy for itself? What if it's using Jupiter's magnetic field as a galactic antenna? Let me explain. You see, Jupiter constantly emits powerful radio waves through a phenomenon called synchrotron radiation. These emissions are so strong that amateur radio operators on Earth can detect them using simple backyard antennas. Jupiter is essentially broadcasting continuously into space. Now, imagine if 3I Atlas could harness those radio waves and use them to amplify its own transmissions. That's right. The object could modulate Jupiter's natural emissions to encode a message. Instead of transmitting its own signal, it could inject energy into Jupiter's magnetosphere at precise intervals, causing the radio emissions to spike and dip in a pattern, essentially creating a coded signal that could travel across vast distances in space. This would be the perfect way for an interstellar probe to send data back to its home star system. By modulating Jupiter's natural radio emissions, 3I Atlas could transmit its findings to anyone or anything listening, and all of this could be happening while we're none the wiser. The signal would be disguised within the natural radio emissions of Jupiter, making it nearly impossible for us to distinguish it from cosmic noise. But that's not all. This is where the stakes get even higher. If 3I Atlas successfully harvests energy from the flux tube and begins transmitting data, we may witness a series of extraordinary events. For starters, the Io flux tube will brighten. Jupiter's auroras will flare up with unusual intensity, visible from Earth as an increase in the planet's northern and southern lights. Telescopes and observatories monitoring the planet will detect this sudden surge in activity. At the same time, Jupiter's radio emissions will spike. Ground-based radio telescopes will pick up unusual bursts that don't match the natural modulation patterns we've come to expect. If 3I Atlas is indeed encoding data into Jupiter's emissions, these bursts will display a structure repeating patterns, sequences that look deliberate. This is the kind of signal that astronomers would notice. The object would be broadcasting in plain sight, using Jupiter as a massive amplifier. And then, of course, there's the object itself. If 3I Atlas has been lying dormant, collecting power, and waiting for the right moment, it might just wake up. It could activate systems that have been dormant for centuries or even millennia. Perhaps it will begin transmitting its own signals, in addition to modulating Jupiter's emissions. If any of these things happen, we will know for certain that 3I Atlas is not just a comet, but an interstellar probe on a mission. Now, let's zoom out for a second. If 3I Atlas is really what the evidence suggests, an interstellar probe intelligently navigating and harnessing energy from Jupiter, then it's not a unique case. In fact, it's very likely that 3I Atlas is part of a much larger network, a network that spans across the entire galaxy. Think about it from a strategic perspective. If you were a highly advanced civilization capable of launching interstellar probes, it would make no sense to build just one. The resources, the risk of failure, it would be far too costly. Instead, you would create a whole fleet of self-replicating probes, each one positioned at key locations throughout the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to activate. These probes would drift in the dark, conserving power, watching as star systems drift across their path. When a star system comes into range, the probes wake up. They detect the gravitational pull, the electromagnetic emissions, and then they fire their thrusters, intercepting the system, surveying its planets, and uploading the data. This is exactly what 3I Atlas has done. Before it entered our solar system, it was moving at less than 5 kilometers per second relative to the local standard of rest, almost stationary in galactic terms. It wasn't racing through space. It was waiting. It was patrolling like a cosmic scout. When our solar system drifted into range, the probe activated. It adjusted its course. It intercepted Earth's orbit and spent weeks scanning our atmosphere, analyzing our electromagnetic spectrum, and detecting every radar, pulse, GPS signal, and satellite uplink we broadcast into space. And here's the most unsettling part. 3I Atlas knows exactly what we are. It knows we're a technological species. It knows we have nuclear weapons. It knows we have advanced space infrastructure. And it knows we're divided into competing nations. This data is valuable. It's intelligence. And on March 16th, all of that information will be transmitted to a destination far beyond our reach. Someone or something will be receiving it. But this raises another question. What if 3I Atlas isn't the only probe? If one probe exists, there are probably many more hundreds, thousands, maybe millions scattered throughout the galaxy. These probes could be watching us right now, tracking our every move, waiting for the right moment to activate, and we wouldn't even know it. We've stumbled upon a surveillance network that might span the entire Milky Way, and we didn't even realize it until now. Now, we're diving into the deepest implications of what 3I Atlas might mean for humanity. If it truly is an interstellar probe, part of a larger network of intelligent machines sent to explore and observe star systems across the galaxy, then we must ask, what's the end goal of all this? What's the purpose behind these probes, and why have they come to observe us now? We are staring at something that could change everything we know about our place in the universe. If 3I Atlas is one probe in a network of many, it's not just observing Earth, it's gathering data about life, technology, and even the geopolitical landscape of our planet. Imagine the scale of what this network could accomplish, tracking and cataloging countless civilizations, collecting information on how they evolve, how they communicate, and how they interact with their environments. But the most unsettling part is that these probes could be scattered throughout the galaxy, watching us without us even realizing it. Each one of them is silently waiting for a star system to drift into their range. When it does, they activate, conduct their survey, and upload the data. In other words, we're just one of countless systems being watched by an advanced, possibly intergalactic surveillance network. And we didn't even know we were being observed until now. The key moment that's coming up, though, is when 3I Atlas successfully harvests energy from Jupiter's flux tube. When that happens, we will see three unmistakable signatures. The Io flux tube will brighten, visible telescopes and ultraviolet observatories monitoring Jupiter will detect an increase in auroral activity at the planet's poles. This will be a sign that the object is siphoning off energy from the flux tube. Jupiter's radio emissions will spike. Ground-based radio telescopes will pick up bursts of energy that do not match the natural modulation patterns. If 3I Atlas is encoding data into Jupiter's emissions, we'll detect structured bursts, a sequence of energy spikes and dips that seem deliberate. The object itself will change. If 3I Atlas has been lying dormant and just woke up due to the energy from Jupiter's flux tube, it could activate systems that were previously offline. It may begin transmitting signals directly in addition to modulating Jupiter's emissions. If any of these things happen, it will confirm that 3I Atlas is more than just a comet or asteroid. It will prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that it is an intelligently controlled probe sent here to observe and report back. But here's where the mystery deepens. If 3I Atlas successfully transmits its data, what did it gather while it was in our solar system? It mapped our atmosphere. It analyzed our technology. It detected our divisions, our conflicts, and our strengths. It cataloged our capabilities from our nuclear infrastructure to our space exploration achievements. And once that data is uploaded, whether it's transmitted through Jupiter's emissions or directly to an unknown destination, it's going to reach someone, somewhere, who has been waiting for it. A civilization, perhaps, on the other side of the galaxy. And that's the chilling thought. This isn't just an isolated probe. If we're right, and 3I Atlas is just one part of a much larger network of surveillance probes, then this could be the beginning of a new chapter in our understanding of the universe. A chapter where we realize that we've been under observation for much longer than we thought, and the galaxy is far more crowded with intelligent life than we ever imagined. What does it mean for us? What will this do to our understanding of space, technology, and the very nature of life in the universe? And if there are many more probes like 3I Atlas out there, how many other star systems have already been surveyed and mapped? For now, all we can do is wait. The next 11 days will be crucial. March 16th is the day when 3I Atlas will make its closest approach to Jupiter, and that's when we'll see if it successfully harvests energy from the flux tube and begins transmitting its data. If it does, we will have undeniable proof that we are not alone in the universe. We will have proof that someone or something is watching us. And the implications of that discovery will be far-reaching, beyond anything we can comprehend. So, keep your eyes on the skies, because what happens next could be the greatest discovery in human history. Or it could be the most elaborate coincidence the universe has ever produced. But whatever it is, we won't be able to ignore it. If you're as fascinated by this mystery as I am, hit that like button and subscribe for more updates on this mind-bending story. We'll continue tracking 3I Atlas and other astonishing cosmic events, bringing you all the latest discoveries as they unfold. Don't miss out, there's a lot more to uncover in the great unknown. Keep watching because the universe has some incredible secrets waiting for us to discover.